Richards, Post Office Box 885, Winter Haven, Florida, 33882-0885. Bob's street address is 5019 Sunrise Drive. His phone number is area code 813-299-4959. The recording was made by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center on January 8, 1989, at his home in Winter Haven, Florida. This is tape number 1 of 2 tapes. Okay, Bob, perhaps you could give us your name and address and phone number if you would.
Okay, Bob Richards, our post office box 885, Winter Haven, Florida, 33882. Phone number, area code 813-299-4959.
Okay, and you live on, what's the street you live on?
That's Sunrise Drive, 5019 Sunrise Drive.
All right, very good. Now, if you would just start us back when you started at Oldsmobile.
I started at Oldsmobile March 18th, 1957.
All right.
I was hired in Chicago. I've been in the automobile business, retail, for 10 years. Jim Knowles is zone manager. And, he hired me as a district manager.
Okay. What did you have to do?
I had talked to Jim prior to this time, primarily about his needing someone or wanting someone who would call on dealers that had some background working with dealers. He was very interested in the fact that I had a great deal of retail experience. So he said there would be an opening coming up, and he hired me. I went to work March 18th, 1957.
Okay.
And he'd asked me prior to this time if I had any problems about moving. Oh no, flexible, can go most anywhere. So when he called me in and hired me and said, now your first assignment will be in Moline, Illinois. District manager, District 5 out of Chicago. Fine. So we moved to Moline, Illinois, rented a house. He said, don't buy anything down there. You probably won't be there that long. So I went down there and began working with dealers, District 5.
Okay. What kinds of things did you have to do?
We call on dealers primarily to promote sales, to promote dealers, doing more advertising, merchandising, in order to move more Oldsmobiles.
Cars, or mostly cars, or would it be accessories?
At that time, it was cars, accessories, parts, special tools. Occasionally there were signs, promotional activities, promotional things we asked them to buy, contests we asked them to get involved in, car orders we asked them to submit for additional cars. Anything that had to do to promote the car, products, signs, tools, and so forth.
Okay.
It was our obligation to the dealer.
Did you have to badger people per se, or was it?
No, it was more a question of selling them.
All right.
Our contractual relationship with our dealers is such that it's a sell, not a tell type of thing. In other words, you can only muscle a man so much.
He is a private business.
He is, after all, an individual, independent businessman. While he does have a great investment in his dealership, in his building, and so forth and so on, he has a contractual relationship with Oldsmobile. Got a lot of money invested in it, and of course, he wants to foster that relationship and wants it to be a good relationship because you control his primary source of income, which is new cars. So, of course, we always had that much influence. In any case, our job is to develop rapport with dealers, encourage them to sell more cars, and in turn make more money.
Okay. How in 57, how was sales going? Was that a...
Well, 1957 was not a good year.
Okay.
Was not a good year. The dealers were selling enough cars to make money. They were selling more used cars than new cars.
Okay.
But it was not a good year. Just a fair year.
How many people did they have like you in that zone?
In the Chicago zone, we had 6 sales districts and 6 service districts.
All right,
For each sales district, there was a service district consisted of a service manager.
all right.
He went around to dealers, that's the way I did, calling different dealers. His job was primarily to work with service problems, mechanical problems the dealers ran into with the product, customer complaints, things of that nature.
All right.
He okayed unusual approvals for repairs on cars, maybe over and above warranty, or things that may not have been covered by warranty that he felt were not customer responsibility. He'd approve them, pay the dealer to do the work. In November, it was the following March. We were there until March of '58. And I got a call stating there would be a substantial cutback in personnel. So in March of 1958, I was called back to Chicago, reduced from district manager to assistant office manager, car distributor. I lost my car. We moved back to Chicago. I went back in the zone. I went into the zone office. I was in the zone office, assistant office manager, car distributor until November 1st. I remember Jim Knowles telling me, he says, we're cutting back, reduced personnel. They laid off the clerk, put me in as assistant office manager, moved the assistant office manager back to clerk. Jim Knowles said to me, don't worry, this is temporary. He said, you'll be back out by the end of the year. So we lived in Chicago from, as I say, till April to the 1st of November. Jim Knowles called me in again. He said, congratulations. You're now the district manager in South Bend, Indiana.
Okay.
Headquartered in South Bend. So we moved to South Bend.
Just a minute, back up to the office manager thing. What kinds of things did you have to do there?
Primarily the 10-day report. At that time, of course, we weren't automated, had no computers or anything. We did all of the manual sales every 10 days. It was mandatory that every dealer send in a 10-day report at the end of every 10-day period. Long report, had to do with all sales by body styles.
Oh, wow.
How many cars in stock, how many cars did you receive, so on and so on and so
Okay.
forth. We had to do a 10-day report, which is quite voluminous. It took very often 2 to 3 days to complete
Really?
for the whole zone.
Did you have to chase after people to get the information,
Oh,
or
yeah,
did it
you have
come
to-
in?
The dealers that didn't send in a 10-day report, you had to call up, take it on the telephone.
Oh, wow.
That happened every 10 days. Very, very time consuming, a lot of trouble, a lot of paperwork, a lot of ticks on the forms and so on. Very, very detailed.
Good.
Lansing depended on it, 100%. We have to mail this to Lansing by a certain date, and Lansing would analyze the figures, and apparently from those figures made their production data, how many cars they wanted to build, succeeding 30, 60, 90 days or whatever it was. But a very time consuming process.
58 must not have been a very good year then.
58 was not a good year either, like 57.
So that was the year we had air ride too, wasn't it?
Yes, and that was the year we had, air ride was the thing, right?
Yeah,
Air ride.
okay. You remember anything about that?
Yes, we had an assignment. Every district manager was to sell so many cars with air ride. And my assignment, I think, was 4. If I remember correctly, the option air ride cost $200 and some extra.
Okay.
And everybody had to drive one. Everybody did. I sold all 4 of mine. The last one to the dealer in just south of East Dubuque, Ottawa, Illinois. Sold at the end. The last car I had. It was a struggle. Took me all day long to get him to buy that one car because he was my last good prospect. I'd sold all of my bigger dealers.
Then, in other words,
So-
it wasn't selling very great.
No, it didn't go over that well.
Yeah.
As it turned out later, it was quite a troublesome option on the vehicle. Froze up in the wintertime, dampness and humidity, and with a lot of trouble with heat.
Okay. But that's how we handled that sort of thing in those days.
Right.
Okay, so now you went to South Bend.
The same type of work in South Bend. It was a much bigger district, a much faster district, much higher volume, much more aggressive dealers.
Okay.
We were in South Bend from, as I say, the 1st of November, 1958 to August of 1962, all the time renting a house.
All right.
Bought a new house,
Doing the same thing.
doing the same type of work,
Same job.
working with dealers and
Okay.
promoting sales.
Okay.
July, we bought a house in South Bend. We'd rented for 4 years. July, we bought a house. 1st of August, they called me up in zone in Chicago and said, now you're the Metropolitan District Manager in Minneapolis, District 1. Oh, be there Monday morning. That's the usual way you get the call. We went to Minneapolis, September 1962. And I was city manager in Minneapolis.
What is that?
Very big district, very high volume.
All right.
Big dealers. Dealers sell, at that time, 1,000, 1,200 cars were a lot of cars.
Oh, yes.
We sold a lot of cars. I don't remember the numbers.
Yeah.
But, we had big dealers like Lindahl Oldsmobile, Towns Edge Oldsmobile, Hess Klein in St. Paul, still there. Some high volume points. So I did that type of work till about 1964. About a year and a half, I think we were there.
Okay.
He called me up. John Reeves was the zone manager. Called me up. He said, well, close up the district. He says, come on home. He says, you're the car distributor in Indianapolis, Indiana.
All right.
I want you to be there Monday morning. That's the way you get the calls.
And this was kind of a normal occurrence in people that were out in the field.
Oh, yes.
Just from here to here to here to
Always.
here. Just
We moved 6 times in 8 years.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So,
Why was that? Why?
well, we needed the flexibility with people.
Okay.
You know, when you have an opening that requires a particular talents of a particular individual, they want to be able to say this guy or this guy or this guy or this guy. And I think that's to a great extent what they try to do. They try to fill the slots with people that they felt had the particular expertise or the slot they wanted to fill.
Was there a reasonable amount of turnover in the people?
Not at that time.
Not at that time.
At the time you joined any division of General Motors, they used to tell you, primary thing that you need to remember to move is to be flexible enough to move. Do you have a problem moving every year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And of course, if you exhibited an objection to that, you're automatically not even considered for the position because they can't use you.
Yeah.
Now, generally speaking, if you ever turned down a move, they used to say, via the grapevine, well, you could buy a house because you aren't going anywhere anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a good reason for that. Because if a man turns down a move, and in 6 months you call him again for another move,
Yeah.
and he turns it down again, and a year goes by and you call him again and he takes the move, then everybody else gets the idea, well, what the hell, I turned down this move.
Because they wait for something
You
better.
know, I'll wait for something better, you know, they'll call me again.
Yeah. Okay.
So the word got out that, well, we aren't going to call you again. Whether that was true or not, I don't know. I know of cases where people had turned down moves and did move again in a year or two, but not very many.
Okay.
I mean, very often you get the call,
Yeah.
you better be ready to go.
Yeah.
So we were always ready to go.
Yeah.
We have 3 children, every one of them born in a different town,
Yeah.
you know.
Who during that period of time there, you said Jim Knowles was your boss?
Jim Knowles was zone manager in Chicago in 57.
Okay, what kind of a person was that? Was he?
Oh, he's a great guy. Jim was a great guy with dealers. But always,
How did he manage the department?
he let every district manager manage his own district.
Mm-hmm.
Neither Jim Knowles, or at the time John Reeves, who was the assistant zone manager, would interfere very much
Okay.
with an individual district manager or district service manager's job, as long as they were working in the district.
Okay.
And they knew whether you were working or not by the number of sales, and the number of what they've heard from the dealers. And they called you on the phone and asked you questions. They knew who was working
Mm-hmm.
and who wasn't working.
Did they have get-togethers back at the main office to?
Oh, we had zone meetings
So,
at least once a month,
All right.
where they would call all the district managers, district sales managers, district service managers into a hotel in Chicago, come in on an afternoon, spend the night there, have a meeting all the next day, and go home the following day. We had those at least once a month.
Okay.
A lot of art and chart, and they put up the district rankings of where we were in sales.
Were those pep talks or?
Oh, yes.
Or,
Always pep talk, always art and chart, always motivational.
okay.
Here's the antifreeze chart. Here's the number of transportable radios Richards sold. Here's the number of cruise controls somebody else sold.
Mhm.
Here's 2 guys couldn't meet their objectives and
Mhm.
why, and things of that type.
Okay.
So you always want to go into these meetings and be very well prepared about your districts, about who your most profitable dealers were and who weren't, why weren't they,
Was a lot of,
about program dealers that you wanted to replace,
okay.
about your program, about your progress, trying to replace poor performing dealers.
Any finger pointing, that sort of
Oh,
thing?
yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of that.
All right.
You bet. Sure. You never want to be low on a totem pole. You never want to be low on a ranking sheet.
Okay.
Harvey Wade used to say we live for a ranking sheet. Whether it's selling, as I say again, antifreeze or radios or sun
Yeah.
visors or floor mats, you better have done your job.
All right.
Get an objective. Better start on your next dealer contact. You're supposed to sell 10,000 gallons of antifreeze in this little district. You better be selling it. So divide it up by the number of dealers. How many dealers can handle how many gallons? Go in with that objective and get them to sign the order.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that's your assignment. But there was always a lot of that.
Was there? Okay.
Point of sale information at the time you're going to work with a dealer. But the next year's announcement show, we always like to have great big announcement shows.
Okay.
We like to have the dealers buy a ton of announcement material,
Yeah.
point of sale material,
Yeah.
invitations, ceiling danglers, window trim, all things of that nature, giveaway items.
See, was that the era where we were having these kind of Broadway show things?
Oh, yes, with, and Joyce probably remember better than I. Those are usually regional shows.
All right.
Where Jack Wolfram, who was apparently quite a showman and liked that type of thing, and I think his daughter did too, would put on these very extravagant music shows to announce the new product.
Were those viewed? How were those viewed from the zone side of the house?
They were a pain in the ass.
They were. Okay.
And the zone in Chicago was a big zone.
Yeah.
Chicago was the regional city for the Midwest region.
Mm-hmm.
Consequently, the other zones in the region were Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Indianapolis, Omaha, would all want to bring their dealers in to our show.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, setting up a show like this, making X number of thousand hotel rooms for the reservations for the dealers and their wives, their managers, making arrangements for the show crew to stay, making arrangements, car assignments, who's to drive who and go where, and so on and so forth, would keep us in Chicago. All of us, everybody that worked in the zone, had assignments.
So you all came
Last for the whole week.
Yeah.
And all you did was run around.
Yeah. All right.
Certain numbers of us handled all the hotel room reservations. When other zones came into the hotel, you'd stand there and pass out the room keys. Everybody was prior registered, whether it was a dealer or zone personnel. We did all the work because zone personnel from other zones would know their way around town.
Right.
So they couldn't help you.
Right.
So we worked very hard during those shows, but those were always good for a week, possibly 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
Occasionally, we would bring in dealers from other regions like St. Louis or Cincinnati, zones that were not within our region. So we'd have to host those zones for those shows also. We just went on and on and on. But we were tied up for a good week and 2 weeks, those activities,
Okay.
which everybody had a lot of fun with.
Oh, yeah.
Expense account, come go you like. You worked hard during the day, but night was playtime, we had a good time.
Remember any interesting experiences that might have occurred?
Nothing in particular that I can recall. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. Made a lot of good friends. People to come back year after year after year among the dealers, the field personnel.
Okay, let's see, where were we? We're up in 62?
We were up in, then I came to made car distributor in Indianapolis, Indiana.
All right.
That was March 1st of 1964.
64, all right.
And Al Quinn was the fleet manager, regional fleet man in Chicago. Clyde Swartz is regional manager. I think that was the year Clyde Swartz retired, 64, 65, somewhere in there. I think Al Quinn went to Lansing as used car merchandising manager. And I came into Indianapolis March 1st, 1964, which is an entirely new position for me. Now, this is an inside job.
Okay.
Where you have control of the distribution of all of the cars coming into the zone for, at that time, probably 134 dealers in the Indianapolis zone. And I was the office manager car distributor responsible for supervision of the entire office, all the girls, all of the car distribution to all of the dealers, all of the paperwork connected with it, which was quite a change for me. We've been used to working with dealers all the time. This was primarily a clerical position.
Okay.
All day, every day, all clerical.
Yeah.
Telephones,
Yeah.
paperwork.
Yeah.
which was quite a change for me. And I had a lot of fun with it, but I spent a lot of time at it, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, almost every night.
Okay,
Bill Lane was the assistant zone manager at that time.
okay. He was right down there too.
He was right. He was the assistant zone manager in Indianapolis.
Mhm.
And our office was in the Fletcher National Bank building, right off the Monument Circle in Indianapolis. Elmer Kosick was the zone manager. I was there a year, March 1st, 1964 to March 1st, 1965. Year to the day, I was moved to Lansing.
Okay.
As manager of used car promotional activities under Hal Quinn.
Did most of the zone people that stayed for any duration end up back in Lansing eventually?
Eventually, yes. What they wanted most people in the field to do was to have some home office experience, which really served a dual purpose. It gave the management in Lansing an opportunity to see close hand just exactly who the people were that were in the field and to evaluate them for future promotional possibilities.
Okay.
So really that was the basis of bringing them to Lansing. Who have we got? What's their potential? How do they look? How do they act? How do they perform? Then we know what we can do with them down the road. And I was one of the first ones that were brought into this group. Well, I moved 6 times in 8 years.
Yeah.
Emmett Feely was the sales manager. Harvey Waite was in charge of the West. George Clemison was in charge of the East. And Mac Worden came in as a merchandising manager over Morgie Seaton. Mac Worden filled a new position, assistant general sales manager in charge of marketing and merchandising.
Yeah.
And we were in the old building then. That was the old personnel building up on the 3rd floor.
60.
That's where the traffic was up on the
Oh, okay. You were in building
3rd
62.
floor. And
Yeah.
3rd floor was traffic and merchandising. 2nd floor was salaried personnel. The 1st floor was hourly.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were in that building, 62.
Yeah, that was when the old building, the old administration building stood over here.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. That's
And,
they ran out of room over across the street, probably.
That's right. There was no room across the street.
Okay.
And then they began constructing the new
building.
administration.
Yeah. Well, now what were you doing there then?
We're in the
At the home office.
developing used car promotional activities. Activities to help the dealers move more used cars profitably. Used cars have always been a very profitable end of this business, but many automobile dealers did not look upon used cars as a profit opportunity. Many of them looked upon used cars as a necessary evil, something they had to handle. And they treated them the same way. You know, they take any used car, wouldn't clean it up, wouldn't fix it up, wouldn't do anything, would just throw it out in the lot, leave it dirty and hope it sells. That was the attitude in those years with some dealers. Of course, those dealers required that we develop those types of attitudes, I should say, had us develop at the time. Used car promotional activities would call dealers' attention to the amount of capital they had tied up in these vehicles and the steps they needed to take to clean them up mechanically, make them saleable, and sell them, get them sold, which is directly the opposite of the way the business is today. But at the time, as I say again, many dealers didn't see them as a profit opportunity. In any case, this went on for, I was in used car promotional activities from 1965 to 1967.
Who was your boss at that time?
That was Hal Quinn.
Hal Quinn.
Ed Heidig was the new car merchandising manager. Hal Quinn was the used car merchandising manager.
Okay. Tell me about those two guys a little bit.
Hal Quinn had been just before that, a regional fleet man in Chicago. Worked in developing the fleet business. Before that, I'd worked for him when he was the assistant zone manager in Minneapolis. He's another man that had quite extensive retail experience in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
Ed Heidig was the new car merchandising manager, and if I remember correctly, Ed Heidig had been the zone manager in Memphis before then, if I remember correctly.
How did those fellows manage the business in those days? How was it? Were they autocratic, or did you do your own thing, or?
Well, no, they weren't autocratic. A lot of it was a lot of the work at that time. What we did was to try to determine this what did we need to do to get our particular job done? In other words, you need to sit down and analyze what's the problem. And management would always want some input. And we'd submit certain plans to management. We think we ought to do, no, we don't want you to do that. We want you to do something else. They'd send us off on some other tangent, do something else. Things that we may or may not have believed in at the time, but things that they wanted concentration on. Consequently, we do what they wanted the concentration on. Well, very frankly, this wasn't a challenge for me at all. This wasn't my cup of tea. But I felt it would be only for 2 years and I'd be back out in the field. The initial year there, I hated every second I spent in the office because it was completely an inactive type of thing, strictly a promotional type of thing. You're hemmed in by the four walls. You're working with the advertising agencies and developing programs, which I didn't feel was any particular challenge. The work I didn't really enjoy. I like to work with dealers. I like to be out where the sales are being handled, where things are happening. This was too confining for me. I mean, I didn't get a chance to talk to the dealers and I know what was going on in the business. In any case, I had a man managing product delivery at the time, and Hank Lohr, who I might say didn't like the job. I'd always been trying to get out of the job. Who would probably go back to the field very shortly. Came into Lansing about the same time I did. In any case, I saw an opportunity down there where we could sell a lot of cars. And there was no effort being put into employee sales at all. This wasn't an area considered worth any extra effort. In any case, I talked to Mac Worden one day. I said, if you were looking for someone that's interested in running product delivery, I said, I'd like to take the job. I said, I think I can sell some cars now. Make a long story short, November 1967, he called me in. He says, sit down. Congratulations, you're the new manager of product delivery.
You did it.
That's the time I should have kept my mouth shut, because I should have gone back to the field. In any case, he said at the time, he says, Bob, you should be going back to the field at your age. And there was a message there, but it was too late now. I'm manager of product delivery. In any case, I was in product delivery from then until the day I retired. And never wanted to go back to the field after I'd been in product delivery 2 years.
But from a volume standpoint, what was happening in product delivery at that point in time?
Well, at that time, there really wasn't an effective new car sales program. The emphasis, of course, is on buy used cars, because you can buy them for less, which is fine. But we have to sell new ones too. Every car we build can't be a used car. Can't sell it at a discount. And there was no defined employee purchase program at the time. If I remember correctly, salaried employees could buy new cars at net. Employees, hourly employees could buy new cars at 10% over that. And used cars, of course, everybody paid the same price. The discounts at the time were pretty much different than they are now. I think they were 25%. And as a used car, you could buy 10% under invoice, 10% under the base vehicle net price. Accessories at cost. Accessories are never discounted. So we developed several plans, promotional ideas, bulletin board notices up in the plants, promote new car sales. At the end of every year, when we had new car announcement shows in Lansing, we invite the employees. Product delivery would always be responsible for those. We always set those up. Well, they had done some, but not very many. But we campaigned that pretty heavily. We'd first of all, on a Friday night, usually have a VIP show for all the VIPs in town. And we would get the membership list of the Chamber of Commerce, Lansing Country Club, Walnut Hills Country Club, all the VIPs. Invite them and their wives to our VIP show, which was, of course, a first-class party held at the Civic Center or at Long's in later years. Long's was built, and was a first-class party. Starts at 7 and goes on till midnight, or until everybody's had enough they can't stand up. Always a first-class party. And after the next several days after that, of course, we'd have the hourly employee, or the employee show, Saturday and Sunday.
For both hourly and
For
salary.
both hourly and salary. We'd invite them to come in, bring their families. We had giveaways and things of that nature. And we had coffee and donuts and cookies and things of that kind. And we'd encourage the employees to buy cars, new cars, used cars, and just buy something. And we took the names of those that were interested in buying new cars. We'd later call them in a product delivery and try to get them to sit down and order a new car. But whether we sell them a new car or a used car, we knew we made some progress.
Mm-hmm.
In later years, both Don Harley and Ray Smith and I,
Okay, you and Don Harley and Ray
Smith and we were talking in my office about developing employee sales. I thought about picking an area where we could go into an area where we have a dealer, so we could get involved in developing employee business. This had to be about 1969. In any case, we got a map and determined where the various plants were. We have a dealer. We thought first we ought to start out a single dealer point, as opposed to a place like Chicago, that had a lot of dealers in LaGrange, Illinois, and so on, where we'd have to work with a number of dealers to develop business in a certain place. So we picked Anderson, Indiana. And I sent Don Harley down to Anderson, Indiana. Bill Saxon was our dealer, an Olds Cadillac dealership. Town of about 60,000. At the time, Delco Remy was a big plant. They made a lot of things, tail lights and headlights and batteries and various types of wiring harnesses and things of that nature. To work with a dealer and develop employee business. And we were primarily working with salary people at the time.
Okay.
And the dealer, I remember, told Don Harley, listen, I don't need you coming to this town helping me. I got all the business in this town and all the employee business I can get. And I think that year, he probably sold 50 or 80 cars, maybe 100. So Don Harley said, well, let's get involved and actively pursue this business. No, the dealer didn't want it. Bill Saxon didn't want us involved at any extent. In any case, Don Harley said, well, I'm going to go out and work with the plant, work with people. And Don Harley went out and spent about a week down there. Went over and talked to personnel, got into the plant. We talked to some other people. He called me down. The big problem, of course, is handling the employee's one-year-old car. This is always a problem. You buy a new one, but what are you going to do with his old one? Right? How many used cars can Anderson, Indiana absorb? In any case, the first year we looked at a number of employee cars, take Jim Walkinshaw by the hand and look at his car, and we get on the telephone, try to find a dealer who would buy it, and he'd buy it, and he'd buy a new one, but this was cumbersome. This didn't work, and you couldn't work this on anybody. Mm-hmm. In any case, about the first year, we developed 200 to 300 sales. Okay. We got the dealer's attention.
Significantly higher, anyway.
Whoa, it was big. Yeah, it got to be big. In any case, then we hit upon the idea of starting an auction at the dealership, where the employees would come in and register their cars in August. There would be a new car. They'd order their next year's car right there, register a used car for sale. The dealer brought in a number of auctioneers, professional car auctioneers from other auctions, invited dealers from mostly around Indiana at that time to come in and bid on these cars. Make a long story short, the first year we sold 300 employee cars. Got 350 some new car orders for the first drive out in Lansing. It significantly grew after that, to the point where in the biggest year, there were probably as many as 600 cars in a drive out. At the time, all of these cars, or most of them, were built in Lansing. So, of course, we put these car orders into the system early. We got them serviced, put out in the yard, and Bill Saxon would hire almost every bus in the state of Indiana to bring the employees and their wives to Lansing. Lansing bought the lunch, sent the auditorium. He'd always bring some entertainment along. Always brought a trouble car along. After lunch, we'd give these people a map. Everybody had a number. Every car was numbered. You say, find a number on your numbered nameplate, matches a car, and that's your car. Keys were in it, and they went. We delivered 600 cars in a matter of an hour and a half.
I'll be darned.
They're all on their way back to Anderson, Indiana.
That picture you gave me then was that.
That was the first drive out, I think, 69. Yeah. Got to be big business with us. Anderson, Indiana, we never had a success as big as Anderson.
Well,
Never.
Did you try that elsewhere?
We tried it elsewhere. We tried it in Kokomo, Indiana. Other dealers got involved. Some dealers complained to the corporation that Oldsmobile was putting too much emphasis on the employee business. Some of the other dealers working for the other car divisions objected to the emphasis that Oldsmobile placed on it
Preferential
at their
treatment.
cost, at a cost to them, and complained to the corporation they didn't think we should be doing it and so on. And of course, the corporation said, that's their business, not your business. If you want to do it, you go do it. But Anderson, Indiana was their biggest.
The dealer always made something off of those cars.
The dealer got 5%.
Yeah.
5% of list on every car.
Yeah, so he shouldn't.
Very significant.
Yeah, but he didn't have to do anything much.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Submit the orders to us. We put them in the system, and he brought the people to Lansing. He hired the buses. We bought the lunch. So his only cost was the charter of the buses,
Yeah.
which he said at one time on one of those drive outs, he hired every available bus in the state of Indiana.
Isn't that something?
It was a big
Yeah.
activity,
Yeah.
and went on every year.
Yeah.
And every year it got bigger.
Mhm.
I think 600-700 cars is probably our biggest.
Isn't that? Well, that's,
And that's bringing all these people,
Yeah.
they're leaving Anderson, Indiana like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So they could get there in time for lunch and pick up their cars. Sometimes we arranged tours. His trouble truck was always the last one to leave because everybody went down to Anderson the same way. Should anybody have any trouble, here's his trouble truck to pick
Yeah.
them up along the
Yeah.
road.
well, that's a
But
good.
those were
That's a good.
those were good years.
That's a good.
We enjoyed that. We think we did a significant job. Bill Buxton said that's one of the best jobs that he's ever seen done anywhere. Nobody's ever done it as big since anywhere.
Did other divisions try and do those kinds of things too?
Buick tried to emulate it,
Uh-huh.
but didn't do well with it at all. Buick dealer in Anderson tried to do it one time.
Yeah.
Didn't work out well at all.
Uh-huh.
Now, at that time, we could save them the destination charge also
Yeah.
by picking up an Atlanta.
Yeah.
In subsequent years, when the destination charge was added to every car, you
Yeah.
couldn't take it off.
Right.
There was no incentive to pick it up.
Did that change then the volume? The
Oh, yes.
Lansing cars.
Yeah, when you can no longer save the destination charge by picking it up in Lansing, there's no inducement to come to Lansing.
Yeah. Why did we do that?
Well, now you're getting into an area I heard you can't answer. But there was no reason for it. It would seem to me that if you pick it up at the plant, we didn't really
$5.
transport the car
Yeah,
anyplace.
yeah.
Why not take it off?
Yeah.
But I was aware of the reason at the time, but frankly,
Yeah,
it escapes me now.
That's all right.
But that ruined the drive-out business.
Yeah, it did.
We used to still do some drive-out business, though, before that occurred. People from lived in Oregon,
Uh-huh.
Denver, could order a car.
Well, on occasion-
Save the destination charge.
People would come from.
The early years,
Uh-huh.
68 through 7, we did a lot of drive-out business.
Mhm.
I say a lot, 50 a month
Yeah,
at that time.
yeah.
Jackie could give you a better idea on that.
Yeah, we'll talk.
How many?
Yeah,
How many we do a month, because she was on the front desk and she made all those
yeah,
deliveries.
yeah.
But I never thought that, I thought that hurt our business. When we couldn't save them the destination charge,
Yeah.
that killed us.
And then you had to rely on just the people at the plant.
Exactly. And even in later years, we charged the employees, whatever the destination was, it's $200, which nobody could understand. Now, why does it cost me $200 to take delivery of a car in Lansing, built in Lansing, I picked up in Lansing? Of course, that's not difficult, that's not hard. That's hard to explain to anybody,
True.
regardless of what some number jumbler might tell you.
Yeah,
Well, we got an expense.
yeah, right.
That kind of expense.
See, all of that time, Bob, who was your boss?
Well, I always worked for the, whoever was the administrative assistant to the general salesman.
Okay,
First, it was Bob Berger. Later on, it was John Fleming, George Clemison, Chuck Strong, Bill Johnston, whoever happened to be the assistant general sales manager or the administrative assistant to the general sales manager. I reported directly to him.
Okay, were there any differences in those individuals? How they ran the railroad, so to speak, direction that you got?
Well, they pretty much left us alone. We went from very competent to absolutely incompetent, as far as people go.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, they were very good or lousy.
No.
You know, they didn't know what they were doing, unconscious. Some of the best people I ever worked for. I would talk about them as individuals, and I certainly would. Bob Berger, John Fleming were probably the two most outstanding people I've ever worked with. And some of the most incompetent people, as far as I'm concerned, Chuck Strong, Bill Johnson, always operated half scared. They operated, I don't know what's coming next, and everything was a panic button. You can't work that way. But John Fleming and Bob Berger, outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. They let you do your own thing. They just want to know what you're doing, and they want to be kept informed of what's going on. They don't want any surprises. They don't want to be blindsided. Most executives I found that I worked with over the years are that way. Keep me informed. I don't want to be blindsided. And they don't want to be. And I feel the same way. I don't need to know everything you're doing, but if something unusual occurs, tip me off in advance. I don't want it to blow up in my face. I have to say, but nobody told me anything about it.
Yeah.
Keep me informed.
Yeah.
Oh, we had some very, very good times.
See, when did you retire, Bob?
March 1st, 1986.
You stayed doing that same sort of job till you retired?
Yeah. Enjoyed it, had a lot of fun with it.
What do you think was perhaps the most significant change that happened in product delivery in those years? During the time you started and ended?
From our standpoint in product delivery was the development of the employee business, of a set of formulated plans for employees to buy cars, set down in black and white. Here's the plan, here's the rules. Before that, we really had no plans. I mean, every plant had a little different system for selling cars to employees.
Okay.
There was always what they call the A plan. Salaried employees could always buy new cars at net. But there was never a plan for the hourly employees.
Okay.
We had a plan at Oldsmobile where employees could buy 10 over cost, but the Buick plant never had any such plan. And Pontiac never had any such plan.
Okay.
And no other plant did. Oh yeah, Chevrolet had one little plan where they gave them something, but it was insignificant. And it wasn't until the later years, until we began working with a corporation, where they could see the need to develop a plan to offer all employees the same types of plans. And I was significantly involved with the corporation in developing those plans over the years, the option 1, the option 2, the rules that went with them. We worked very long on those programs, developing the forms that went into it.
We sort of, in essence, pushed the corporation to do something.
I'd say so, yes. And Rick really started it was the Anderson drive-outs. How can you do all this work with these employees? How did you do it?
Yeah.
Bob Anderson was on the marketing staff at the time, and he called us up and asked us about it. Asked if I'd come down and talk about it, and we went down and talked about it, and we got some Buick people involved, Pontiac people involved. We came up with the option 1 and 2 program. Then I think in one of the contract renewals with the UAW, this came up.
They got
something about,
didn't it? Yeah.
We developed something along this line, and we were called in to put it together. And we did. Buick, Pontiac, Cadillac, Chevrolet, Oldsmobile. We all sat around a table and we developed the option 1 and the option 2 and the payment of the 5% of the dealers and the rules and programs involved. But I think that was the biggest development.
Okay.
Development of the employee, business to the sales to the employees.
What did we do? Did we do any special things in the plant to promote sales?
Well, besides the,
employees? Besides the, what I'll call the.
well, besides the
posters
bulletin boards and
Yeah.
the announcement show programs for the families, the new plant that we're building the L Little Four.
At plant 5,
Yeah, okay.
the diesel
The
plant?
first year, we had to drive out there. There's some pictures of that someplace that I don't have in handy.
Okay. I think I've seen
The
one.
first drive out, where we had the balloon,
Yes, the tethered balloon.
that was the first one.
Yeah.
We had the first, come out, bring your family, take an Oldsmobile for a test drive. Routes laid out, but everybody take a car and you may be gone for half a day with it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, those were, that was the first one of those we had. And we had hundreds and hundreds of employees come out, brought their families. We probably had 200 or 300 cars to drive, all different makes, models,
Yeah.
engines, options,
Yeah.
colors. Had hot dogs, hamburgers, Cokes, giveaways for the folks. Product delivery sponsored that. We put the first one on that ever had in Lansing. Other divisions later on got aboard our boat.
Did we let folks out of product delivery building itself come in and borrow a car and test drive it, so to speak? Did that exist?
It wasn't publicized, but should any employee ever come along and say, you know, I'm considering buying a car, I'd like to drive an 88 or a 98, we would let them take a car, a couple hours or half a day.
Yeah.
But we didn't publicize it. We at one time had a drive program, a test drive program. Did not work out at all. For an employee, I think, if I remember correctly, we started out with only salaried employees. They could come up with what's called a tip program. It was
Yeah, I remember that.
where an employee could come up and could sign up for a car and take it out for 2 days.
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah. Anyway, he was
And
gone
it
with
got to be a very cumbersome program of lost keys and damage to cars. They wouldn't bring them back when they were due,
and other people waiting.
and other people waiting to pick up the car. And it worked very well, and employees liked it. They thought it was a very, very beneficial program. But it got too cumbersome for us to handle. I mean, we just couldn't manage it anymore.
Yeah.
People would bring the car back, and then they want to drive here or there. You got to take her back home again. My husband's working.
Right.
And that didn't work out at all. So later on, we went to assigning a certain number of cars to different staffs. And let the staff
Handle
assign the car themselves.
logistics.
Like we'd give 30 cars to personnel and say, these are 30 cars of yours this week. You sign them anywhere you want to. We want them all back by Friday so we can give them to manufacturing on Monday and whatever. But getting the cars washed and serviced and cleaned and gassed. And we just didn't have the people to do all these things. It got to be very cumbersome. I think it was successful. I think the employees liked it. But from the standpoint of logistics, it was just an impossible program to manage. The later program, or the one I told you about earlier, where we let everybody take them out for a couple hours and bring them right back to that yard, worked very well.
What about the general sales managers, Bob? Did you deal with those to any extent?
Oh, yes, quite closely.
What can you tell us a little bit about some of those individuals?
Well, Bill Buxton, after Mac Worden went to the corporation, Bill Buxton came in as general sales manager. Bill Buxton was the longest serving general sales manager I worked.
Okay.
And Bill Buxton was a very good man to work for. And he let you do your own thing. But again, he'd like to know what's going on. Just keep me informed.
Okay.
But no specific instructions. But of course, we always had special driving assignments, things for people. Take our people away for product delivery. They liked the fact that we developed this employee business, so they left us pretty much on our own. But we're still putting about 200 cars a month in the fleet, taking 200 cars a month out of the fleet. We always had a waiting list of employees wanting to buy, company used cars.
How did you handle that so you didn't get people all upset with you?
Well, in later years, we had a system that we used for many, many years. Seemed to work very well. We'd post the bulletin board, telling people if they want to put in for a company car to send an application in by a certain date. via plant mail only.
Yeah.
We date and time stamp every one we get. And if we say the given date for the acceptance of those requests was 1st of October, by the 2nd of October, we'd have 1,000 of them.
Buried.
We'd then categorize them by date and time, by body style, put them in a file. As the car became available, the individual wanted, we'd call them up or send them a postcard. Come in and you're now eligible, your name has come up on the list. Please come in and tag the car of your choice. That's the way we handle it. Typically, we make no distinction at all between salaried or hourly.
Yeah.
Equitable to everybody.
First come, first served. So
that's right. And we'd always have a waiting list for 98s and 88s, which was perhaps our most popular.
Mm-hmm.
We used a lot of B station wagons, which most employees didn't want to buy, so we always had those available.
Mm-hmm.
But certain employees would always come up and say, go to their superintendents, I can't buy a company car. And the superintendent would call us up and say, why can't he buy a company car? Because he wants an 88, and he's a 37th down the list, and he's not going to get a call for 60 days.
Yeah.
Now, if he wants a wagon, we'll take care of him tomorrow. Well, you don't want a wagon. I said, well, okay. We offer him a car.
Yeah.
We always had something to offer almost everybody.
Yeah.
May not be what they want. That's the problem. But by and large, I think we did a pretty good job based on the volume that we handle, number of cars we handle.
Did you get to handle the employees' used car in this time period?
We did. We got into that, both Don and I, in an effort to sell more cars, to try to help an employee sell his car.
How did you do that?
Well, we had a number of dealers that we contacted, local dealers and out-of-town dealers, some used car dealers. They used to come into product delivery to buy employee cars, some as far away as Lafayette, Indiana.
Mm.
And we'd encourage them to come in and try to buy employee cars. We'd work with the dealer, we'd work with the employee. We later on developed a card. Try to help you sell your car, fill out this card. We'd fill out the card. Don or I would look at the car, well, what do you want for it? Well, I got to have 12 or 8 or 9 or whatever it was. We'd say, well, the car's worth 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
The employee said, I can't take it. We couldn't do anything for him. The guy said, well, I could take a little less. And we'd call 2 or 3 dealers and work with it and try to sell them on the call. Mm-hmm. And that got to be quite cumbersome because we very often have 50 or 60 cards on our desk that we're trying to sell cars for.
So we're trying to sell cars
for. We're trying to, if we sell this company, this used car for this employee, we can sell another new car.
Yeah.
But very frankly, later on, that got to be very cumbersome. We just couldn't handle the volume.
Yeah.
We started having the dealers come in and try to buy them on their own,
mm-hmm.
which to this day some dealers still try to do.
Do they? Mm-hmm.
But there isn't very much of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, those were fun years. I mean, really fun years. I really enjoyed that. It's one of the reasons I didn't really want to go back to the field, because I had a lot of fun in product delivery. It's a little pond, but you're the king, and you can have a lot of fun. Sure. You can do most anything you want, and everybody there to help you. The superintendents would always help you. Don or Ray would go out in the plant in an effort to sell new cars or used cars. We're always welcome anywhere we went.
Did we have chauffeurs for executives?
No, we had one driver, Oliver Bixby.
Okay.
Who at the time was the general manager's driver.
All right.
He drove the general manager or the sales manager or whoever else may need a ride at that time.
Was that on request or was it all the time? Did the manager, like the general manager, ask to have Ollie drive him or?
No, he was assigned as the general manager's driver.
But the general manager didn't want to drive himself.
Generally speaking, no. He'd want to be picked up at home and taken to a meeting in the GM building or picked up or delivered here, there, everywhere.
Yeah.
They did a lot of flying out of the airport in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be picked up at his home and taken to the airport and fly out and picked up in Chicago or Flint or back in Detroit on Friday or whatever.
Yeah.
And the same was true of the general sales manager, assistant general sales managers, whoever may need a ride, call product delivery and arrange for it. So he could always come up with a driver.
Yeah. Any unusual circumstances happen with those kinds of activities?
Not that I can recount offhand. One time, the auto show in Chicago is always held, I think, in February. I was out at the gun club on a Sunday morning, and I got a call. My wife said, "Guy in Chicago called, and the executives are coming back to Lansing. They can't get into Detroit or Flint because of the weather, so they're gonna land in Lansing. And you should go pick them up. I said, pick them up? How many are there? Oh, about 20 of them. I said, oh. I said, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, you know, where do you expect me to get these drivers by 12 o'clock? I'm thinking to myself, they got the call from Chicago. I called him back, and that's what he told me. He said, GM plane can't get into Detroit.
Yeah.
Pick these people up at the airport. They're coming into Lansing. I said, that's nice. So I quickly get on the telephone, and I call Luidato, Ray Smith, 2 or 3 others. Took them down to Building 70, knocked Building 70, and dragged out 4 cars, fill them with gas, and run to the airport. Grab them all. And there was Bob Berger and Helen, the general manager, Cook, and a number of executives in the corporation who all lived in Detroit.
Yeah.
Herman Hummel and his wife. And we got them all in about 6 cars.
Yeah.
Deliver these 2, and these 2, these 2, these 2. One guy had to go to Flint, a couple of guys had to go to Detroit. Those are things you kind of contend with.
So you were in the taxi.
Fires you got to put out once in a while.
Taxi business.
But
See, the guy in the garage always worked for you too, didn't he?
Clayton Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Did that particular side of the house have any unique occurrences? All of the company car drivers that he had to deal with?
Well, everybody, you know, it's a prima donnas, you know, that I gotta have that. I tell a story about Doug Tracy too.
Okay.
Doug Tracy was superintendent of the engine plant. Doug Tracy called me up one day. He said, say, you just assigned one of my assistant superintendents in '98. I said, okay, so what? Well, he says, I'm only driving an F-85 or a Cutlass, something like that. I said, so what? Well, I'm the superintendent. I said, oh, is that important? In any case, we had words. When I got into the file and looked them up, I said, Doug, you just got out of a '98. I know, but I got a Cutlass and my assistant superintendent's got it. So we switch off. And John Belts had told us that. He left specific instructions that everybody was to drive everything. To switch off. Don't give everybody 98s all the time. I said, well, John, I'm coming from you, we can do it. But prior to you giving me these instructions, some superintendent calls up and wants a 98. I said, I have to give him one because the next call he's going to make is to Bill Buxton, and Bill Buxton's going to call and say, give him a 98.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want everybody to drive everything. And so from that day on, I had no problem with it. But I didn't take Doug out of his Cutlass either.
Yeah.
I didn't take the assistant superintendent out of his 98 either. But things like that did occur.
I mean,
We had another incident like in later years. Bill Cook called up one day.
Bob Cook?
Bob Cook.
Yeah.
Said, how come I never see any smaller cars, anything but 98s in the executive garage? He says, because nobody wants to drive anything but a 98. They won't drive them. Well, why won't they? Because they tell me what they want to drive and they drive them. Well, he says, I think everybody ought to drive everything. I said, well, I think you better make that announcement at your next staff meeting then and let them know. Of course, this was at the time that our inventory of cars on hand was rather small.
Okay.
We just didn't have a lot of small cars on hand.
Yeah.
But 10 minutes after the staff meeting was over, every staff head in the joint's calling us up trying to get a Cutlass to drive. They said, hey, fellas, we don't have them.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, too, it's difficult to take a man out of a car that he's just got 1,000 miles on.
Yeah.
Put him in something else, put somebody else in the car to put the other 2,000 miles on.
Right.
So we told him we just didn't have the cars. Well, you got to get me a car. Some of these staff, you got to get me a car. I got to have a Cutlass.
Mm-hmm.
But to make a long story short, yes, we finally put them all in smaller cars. But that didn't last. The egos were too big. They couldn't handle it. You can't get their ego in those little cars.
You used to see a lot of big cars in the garage.
Well, they were never anything else.
Yeah.
Because, as I say again, some of these executives couldn't get their egos in these Cutlasses. It won't fit.
Yeah.
But that's, I guess, is something I learned over the years.
Yeah.
Ego's a funny thing. I mean, I guess it is to everyone, but you get people in certain positions. I mean, if they're not driving the biggest thing we build, they can't leave the office.
Yeah.
I mean, And the only time they drive a little car is when they were driving their wife's driving by, which is 90% of them were cutlasses.
Right. Right.
But, a lot of fun.
Well, Smitty must have had some unique experiences there.
Oh, yes. The guys, I can't drive this color. I can't. My wife don't like this color. You gotta get me another car. He's only gonna drive it 90 days, but he can't stand the color.
Yeah.
You run into some dumb things.
Did people by and large take reasonably good care of their company vehicles, or did we have guys that were just?
No, we've had several cases, particularly with pipe smokers or cigar smokers that abuse the cars. We got several that, I said, we had one in particular that burned the upholstery pretty good. And we told him, "Now you're going to keep this up." I said, "The next time we show this car, it's going to be to your staff head. I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to do it because I'm not going to put up with this."
Yeah.
I said, "We give you a brand new car. Didn't have a mark on it." I said, "Come up here and look at the burn holes in the upholstery. I know you smoke a pipe." "Well, Bob," I said, "don't give me any excuses. God damn it. We're not going to have this. Now stop it or let the staff head see the car."
Mhm.
And I said, "That's going to stop it, and you know it will."
Of Winter Haven, Florida, made on January 8, 1989, by Jim Walkinshaw of the Oldsmobile History Center. This is tape number 2 of 2 tapes. Back to the accident thing.
Oh, yes, we'd have people that have accidents. Getting an accident up in northern Michigan on a weekend. They'd get home to Lansing, the first thing we get a call Monday morning. "Well, I had an accident with my car in Cadillac." It's in Cadillac, Michigan.
Oh, no.
I said, "Well, what do you want me to do with it in Cadillac?" "Well, we couldn't drive it." I said, "Well, it's your obligation to get the car back here." Who, me?" "Well, I'm just signing the car." "Well, what do you want me to do?" I said, "Call Plant 4. They'll arrange to get it back." Some cases, it was a pretty heavy accident. I said,
Yeah.
"Anybody hurt? You better make out an accident report up in the county.
Yeah.
Tell them what happened." I think it was Cliff Durr or somebody at the time. They had to make out accident reports. Accidents, yeah, we had a lot of those.
Ever lose anybody?
No, but that was the year that Rollis and had an accident going to Detroit. He and Bob.
Yeah. There were 3 guys in that car, weren't there?
It was Rollis,
Yeah.
guy that went to truck. Oh, Bob
Truxell.
Truxell. I think Mooney.
Maybe Mooney, yeah. I think maybe it was those 3
Okay,
guys.
yeah. That's the only one I remember.
Yeah.
The only big accident
Yeah.
that really injured some people.
Did we get any edicts after those sort of things that said, hey, no
Buckle
more-
up.
Oh, just buckle
You
up?
get the buckle up deal, but
Yeah.
that was one of those types of things that.
Yeah, but not, no 3 executives in one car at a time sort of.
Oh, I think that just went for the airlines.
Mhm. The other sales managers you worked with, Buxton was your,
Buxton was the one that
the
was
main one.
the big one for the greatest length of time.
Okay,
But of course, when he left, and Jim Maddox came in.
yeah. Any difference between the way those 2 guys managed the business?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure I wanted to
Oh,
tell you.
okay. Yeah, don't-
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's when we get into egos and,
okay.
you know, it's,
Were those, were general sales managers generally what I would call salesman type people? Is that what, would that,
yeah, I think Bill Buxton and Mac Worden and Bob Berger were probably the best
were more
sales oriented.
sales oriented sort of folk?
Some of the others were more administrators than anything else.
Okay. How about general manager? Get a chance to work with any of those guys close enough so you'd have an opinion?
Oh, yeah, I think John Belts was probably the #1 general manager. He was to me the general manager.
All right. Why?
John Belt said, just the way he acted and the way he conducted his business and conducted himself, he was just general manager caliber. He was just a take charge, take over guy. Once he said, this is it, everybody knew he meant it.
Yeah.
There was no questioning anything John said, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But in later years, yeah, we've had some that, some I didn't know hardly at all. The one that passed away that came from Canada.
Oh, Baker, he never really arrived, did
Well,
he?
I guess he never really
Yeah,
arrived,
yeah.
but he was kind of autocratic, I understand. Always had one ear to the telephone about what Detroit had on their mind, and
Yeah.
more than what Oldsmobile was going to do.
Yeah, I think he followed John Bell
Uh,
after Bell's died.
Howard,
Carroll?
I knew Howard Carroll. Didn't think much of him.
Why?
Well, I think Howard Carroll thought he was on his way to the corporation, and this was only a stopping off spot for him. An interesting. I'll never forget. I was ordering Howard Carroll's driving by one time in his office. This is the first year that we had a Vista vent and a Vista cruiser,
Oh, yes.
which is just a little bitty lift-up window over the
Right.
driver's seat.
Yeah.
And apparently he had a lot to do with this fact that we had it or we got it or whatever, the development, whatever. He made the remark to me that we would sell a lot of those Vista vents and Vista cruisers. And of course I didn't say anything. I said, well, then he proceeded to tell me all about it. And I didn't say anything. He said, don't you think we'll sell a lot of those? And I said, no. And he was visibly shaken.
Really?
Which to me didn't amount to a hill of beans. We're out to sell a car. I mean, this event is just, yeah, we sell it, we make a couple of nickels, but no big deal. Apparently it was to him because he was visibly shaken when I said, no, I don't think we'll sell a lot of them. Well, why won't we? I said, because first of all, the dealers won't order them on stock cars. Because it's a $60 or $70 item that if they have it on the car in stock, they'll have to throw in the deal when they sell the unit.
Yeah.
Because they can't get the customer to pay for it. Well, he didn't believe that at all.
Oh, good.
So we had quite a conversation about it. I said, from that time on, I said, I don't think Howard and I ever saw eye to eye in anything. That was no loss as far as I was concerned.
Of course, Howard was not a salesperson. He was a.
No, Howard was a
Engineer.
buyer square. As far as I'm concerned, couldn't even spell it. But, well, I don't, Howard Carroll wasn't one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
The fact that he got vice chairman of the corporation don't mean much to me either. But, no, I didn't think too much of him. John Belts was very nice.
Was Metzel there at all when you were?
I like Metzel. Metzel was there when I first got there, and
Okay.
I was still in the new building before I went to product delivery. That was
Yeah.
in '67.
Yeah.
Harold Metzel was very nice, but very quiet, very unassuming.
Yeah.
I never said much. Not very, wasn't a pushy type, but he was the manager, and everybody knew he was the general manager. Harold managed the business very quietly, without making a lot of noise or without creating a lot of furor. But you could see Harold's hand behind a lot of things. Harold Metzel was very nice. Bob Cook was always very nice. I think Bob Cook sometimes felt like kind of a fish out of water because he was now running things that he really didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
knowledge about.
Bob was a manufacturer. So
He was strictly a manufacturing man. That's what his expertise was, and that's what he liked to do. And I felt there were times when he was a little uncomfortable being the general manager. But I think he did a good job. I always liked Bob, got along with Bob very well. At least I'd say this for Bob Cook. If he didn't know, he'd ask.
Yeah.
Which some of the others wouldn't. They'd stumble through or stumble by it and try to bull their way through it because of their position. I'm the general manager. I must know it all. I'm the general manager. Certainly I must know it all. But Bob Cook would ask. If he didn't know, he'd ask.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was a sign of a mark of a man.
was Sanchez there? Were you there?
Oh, yes. Didn't have much to do with him. Didn't know much about him. Been with him several times, one-on-one. He's okay. From my standpoint, didn't have much to do with us. Very nice person, as far as I know. Yeah, Sanchez, Robert Carroll, Bob Cook, John Belts, Baker, and again. So that was my career, Jimmy.
Okay. Bob, do you think, from a product standpoint, what do you think was perhaps the most significant thing that happened product-wise during all that period?
The most significant thing product-wise?
Mm-hmm.
Good or bad?
Either way.
Well, I think when we made the change, we got rid of the Super 88, went to the Delta 88, and got our pricing realigned. So there wasn't a significant difference. Or it was a greater significant difference, I should say, between the 98 and the 88. We upgraded the 88
Yeah.
Without charging people almost the price of a 98.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even remember how all that came about. It was something about Fisher Body had to have X number of body, X number of dollars more to make a Super 88 than a 98 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But when that all got realigned in the 88 prices, then the 88 became a very significant car of its own, in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that time, we didn't sell many Super 88s because because the price differential was not that great.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think that was important. We took the luxury sedan out of the 98, which should never have been there. We never needed a luxury sedan as opposed to the 98 Brougham.
Okay.
That was a waste. We kept it in the line, I think, strictly because of price. So we'd have a price leader. But notwithstanding, it didn't warrant having a separate line of cars just to have that price leader because I don't think it did that much for us.
Yeah.
Had I been the one making the decisions, I'd have taken that right out of the line because we could have saved all that money. There's no need for it. Because the price differential wasn't that great between a straight luxury sedan, which you could get without power windows and without a power seat, standard, and so the price was down $500. Who cares? You know, when you're up in that kind of money, who cares about another $500? So that was another change that we did. We made that I think helped the product, the luxury sedan out. But we've had some marvelous products over the years. 442s, the little hot rods, I never thought much of. I think did a lot for our image.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we sold that many of them, but I think it did a lot for Oldsmobile's image to see those cars going down the street, particularly in the minds of the younger people to whom performance is a very important thing. I think it did a lot for the entire product line. We've come out with some very significant things over the years in that line of 442s and hot rods and speed shifts and
first holes and
things like that, you know, just did a lot for us.
Okay, Bob, that's great.
Okay.
Think that very well covers it?
I think that about covers everything. You know.
Good job. Good job.